Hey guys. So more and more I've been spending time reading A Course in Miracles, or reading parts of A Course in Miracles, which is like the Bible. It's that big. It's written in verses, and it's so full of, it's like you read 10 verses in there, essentially 10 paragraphs, and to truly understand what it means and what it means for you, you really have to kind of stop and just let it percolate for a while. You have to stop and think about it. It's that if you just read it, if you just read it from start to finish, you wouldn't be able to retain 99% of what's in there. So there's this website. It's I'll link to it. I'll find it. I'll link to it in the description. But it has an oracle where you can just click on it. It's like a button, where you essentially get assigned something randomly, although, according to A Course in Miracles, it's not random. But you'll get assigned a section, a chapter, a part of a chapter, and then you can just read it. And I found, the whole thing is so pertinent to my life at this point that pretty much anything I land on has something for me right now. But the book in a nutshell is essentially a guidebook for undoing the illusion, for dispelling the illusion of the world, which doesn't mean that you then ascend or poof, you're gone or anything like that. It just means that you have a completely different orientation towards the world. One where you actually experience happiness and peace. End goal would be all the time, but more and more and more. And I made a video on this channel about forgiveness, which is one of the core parts of A Course in Miracles. I think I did that about a year ago, and I haven't rewatched it, and it probably says almost exactly the same thing as I'm going to say now. It'll be interesting to see what difference there is at this point after a year, but I wanted to talk about this concept again because it is, it's interesting in its difference between how we normally think of forgiveness and what forgiveness means from the Course in Miracles perspective, from the dispelling the illusion perspective. My understanding is that from this perspective of the world as an illusion, what forgiveness is not somebody has wronged you, and from your position of moral superiority, being better, you say, even though I'm better than you, I am going to give you a pass on this. So, hopefully you can learn and rise up to my level, and we can continue to have a relationship or not, or whatever. That's generally how people think of forgiveness. I'm going to let go of this thing that has wronged me. From the Course in Miracles perspective, in my understanding, forgiveness is understanding that this is an illusion and therefore it didn't even happen, really. It happened in the world of illusion, but it didn't happen to who you really are. It didn't happen in reality. The reality being that, we're just part of God, and this is an illusion that we've created, and everything we're seeing here is a projection of our mind and not truly what is real. So from that perspective, forgiving means I see this thing that happened and I don't think about who's wrong or right at all. I just recognize that it didn't happen. There's nothing to forgive because this is a projection. This isn't even real. So, and just to be clear, that's not to say that you didn't experience something as real here and that you're not suffering after effects of something that was done to you, that on this plane or this realm or whatever, however you want to describe it, inside the illusion, you were wronged and hurt and a victim. So basically the whole purpose of this forgiveness from the Course in Miracles perspective is to reorient you back to reality, to the right now, to the moment where you're simply conscious of right now and this doesn't exist, which is the only thing that's real, according to it and according to my personal experience. You know, when you're just sitting here right now and you look out around you at whatever you can see or hear or whatever, and you don't have any thoughts of the past or the future on your mind, that is the truth. That is the true reality for you. And it's a place that you can return all the time. And I think that, you know, this is useful. I mean, this type of, understanding this, being aware of this, or just having this concept floating around in your mind's vicinity, I think can just start to be helpful. Even if you're like so far from this being something that you can grasp and use because, you know, you're sort of mired in the 3D or you're mired in the physical world, still getting stuff. This is like, you know, if you're worried about your survival from like a financial standpoint or health standpoint, I think it, like, you know, going from there to the point where you're leaving all that stuff behind can either be really easy just because out of self-preservation you're able to just kind of do it, or it can be nearly impossible because it's like you got to scramble to survive. So I think that from that perspective, there may not be a lot you can do with this, but just getting it in there, just getting it somewhere in your mind, I think can help for a couple of reasons. When you start to really look at the 3D reality as being an illusion, a projection of your mind, I think it helps you to start to manipulate the 3D reality. I mean, if you take all of the importance out of this reality, and start to change your mind about the meaning of the things that you're trying to get, I think in a lot of cases, it becomes a lot easier to get things. I think that everybody can get what they need to survive. I think everybody can get past that hurdle. And so I think just thinking about this, starting to think of this as an illusion. I mean, this is Neville Goddard. This is everybody. I mean, no matter how stupid the YouTube channel is you're watching, or how, you know, how just like basic the person's understanding is, pretty much everybody talking about manifestation is essentially saying reality doesn't work the way we've been believing it does. It's actually malleable. It's actually changeable. You can actually do things with your mind, which I think logically leads to what we're perceiving as an illusion. So pretty much everything points to the illusion. So I think it's good to think of it that way, even if you're not at a point where, you know, you can start to look at your injustices as not having really happened in reality. You know, if you're not at the point where this is the illusion and the reality is what's you know, in your mind, it's still helpful. It's still helpful to get that seed in there. It's helpful to hear this and think about it a little bit, even if you're just like, I can't do anything with this. If you can just kind of start to accept that this is a reality that you can't do much with yet, you know, that these concepts seem way out there to you and they're not very useful. I think just hearing them, like, and I'm probably projecting my own experience here because I've been steeped in this stuff for 30 years and couldn't do anything with most of it for most of that time, you know. And I read A Course in Miracles, or read it. I started to read it as much as I could here and there in my early 20s, and it scared the absolute living shit out of me because what I'm talking about seemed awful at the time. When I was 23, you know, I read this and I, you know, correctly understood what it meant. It meant basically that the life that I was getting ready to go chase after was not going to bring me the kind of happiness I thought it would. And it didn't. It didn't, but I couldn't at that time just take that leap. You know, it felt like throwing my life away. And so I just shut the book and I stopped thinking about it, and took some things from it about forgiveness that were totally wrong. You know, I approached it with the human perspective of forgiveness, which, you know, is essentially, I just humanly forgave people in the wrong way and allowed them to continue to do things that were offensive to me and violated me and stuff like that, because I looked at this forgiveness concept as human forgiveness, when what it really just means is remembering that this isn't real. And that's it. What you do as a human is a different story. And so I just ran from it. I couldn't do anything from it. And it took 20 years for me to go through all that. You know, I'm going to go get the achievements. I'm going to go get the relationships and experience them. I remember thinking, I don't want this. I want to argue with my husband. I remember having that exact thought when I was 23. This is basically being a nun, and I want to go have a real life. And it's not being a nun at all. Another misunderstanding. So, you know, if you can't do a lot with this, I hope any of that made sense. If you can't do a lot with this, that's okay. The point of it all is, the point in my understanding and, you know, reading A Course in Miracles through my own personal experience and everything that I've worked out over the last 5 years especially, it's all pointing to, this is an illusion and it's all good. It's all good. Underneath this illusion, it's all good. And any way that you can come back to understanding that is beneficial to you. It's progress. The more time you can spend right now, right here, in touch with the fact that this is not real, the better. And that is what forgiveness is, essentially. Remembering that this isn't real. And therefore, that whatever's happened to you in this world of illusion, it didn't actually touch who you are. And it didn't happen in true reality. And thus, there is nothing to forgive. Nothing and no one to forgive. Nothing and no one to change but self. It all ties together. It's beautiful. That's it. It's Sunday morning. That was my church sermon for the morning. And I hope that that did something for somebody. And have a great day.